asking me to come in and do like 50 years of magic we did years ago, the 50th anniversary of Disneyland. It's fun to rearrange all the classic Disney tunes. I also got to write a new song with my friend Elizabeth Scott. Big shout out to Elizabeth, who's amazing. I love her.
Who is the vocalist on Passion of the Christ?
Vocalist on Passion. If I can get Elizabeth Scott on any project I'm working on, I do it. In fact, she worked on Iron Man 2. She wrote the lyrics for me for a number of pieces that employed Russian singing in Iron Man 2. So Elizabeth, again, to my great joy, was involved on that one, and whenever I can get her, I get her involved because she's just fabulous.
So the singing on Iron Man 2, can you give us a scene where that is?
Absolutely. The very first scene in the movie where we get to meet Ivan.
And Mickey Rourke is in Russia.
Is in Russia, and his dad's apartment. His dad is dying in the other room, or he's passed away in the other room. And then we get to meet Mickey as Ivan, and there's a moment where, as we get through the titles, you start to hear a choir coming in, and they're singing in Russian. And there were a few places that we had the Russian choir. We also utilized the Russian choir on the Monaco track. When you see Mickey coming towards the camera, you may not be able to hear it very, very well because the dub and there's a lot of crashing of cars, but nonetheless, it is there, and you hear it probably most clearly in that first scene. And that first scene was really fun for me to write because the first scene in that movie, those of you fans out there, the great thing about the first scene of Iron Man 2 is it really gave me a chance to do some music that really is featured. And as with these kinds of movies, you can imagine, it's always, the music is always going to have a little bit of a battle with, no pun intended, with the sound effects and with the whooshing of the jets and all that. So the first scene was quite unique for me because it was enabled me hopefully to put a stamp on that movie and say that my friend the music supervisor turned to me after the first 6-minute piece and said this ain't no effing expletive, this ain't no effing X-Men movie. And that was sorry
John
all due
Hoffman.
respect. I love those X-Men movies. I just love them. But in other words, what I am trying to do when you guys do get a chance to hear the score of Iron Man 2, what I hope you'll listen for is my intention of trying to write a score that doesn't necessarily sound like a cookie cutter score. And hence bringing in Tom Morello, bringing in a wonderful cellist named Tina Go, playing electric cello, jamming along with Tom Morello, which you fans won't even necessarily know it's a cello, but it is. And combining all these different worlds together to create a score. And Iron Man 2 is one of those kind of scores. I hope it's something. I'm not saying I was, completely successful with it, but at least I can listen to it, being a little bit of time away from it. And the intention was always for me to create kind of a Led Zeppelin meets classic underscore meets kind of a world approach. And again, I'm hoping to kind of revisit that kind of idea in other scores because I think that it's really fun for me. And, that's what we were talking about earlier. As a composer, if you can at least try to buck the trend, it's a great thing. I'm not going to say, who knows if we're successful or not, but that's what I was trying to do.
Now, Zach Law wants to know what other composers are in the building. I think Austin Wintory is probably asking the question.
Austin Wintory and a guy named Dave Holden, and they're both great.
But you don't work with them. It's not like a remote control situation.
I haven't yet. No. They're on their own. They don't need me. They're very busy, and but someday I would like to work with either of them or both of them. If that happens. But I'm, you know, I'm crazy. I do it all myself. I mean, I don't know why.
Now,
I
I'm
don't. I mean, I guess I could have three guys in a room. I just, I don't know.
now with all your movies to your credits and Academy Award nominated, you received ASCAP's highest honor, their Henry Mancini Award. You were the youngest recipient to receive that award.
I,
Now, with all your films that you've scored, I, I want you to name two scenes in films. And usually you work for two scenes in film. I'm saying two because I know what one is. That
okay.
that you're the most proud of. That it's like
Yeah, you know
wow.
what one is.
So it's you know
Okay. Well,
they don't they may not.
the one that I'll mention that, where are you?
I'm
There
over
he
here.
is. He's still here. The one that always comes to mind, it is the number one. It's a scene from the Passion. Uh, and I will tell you, honestly, everybody out there, viewers, listeners, that the one that everybody mentions to me almost 100% of the time is the scene in the Passion where there's a flashback where we have Mary, the mother of Jesus, and she's having a flashback about Jesus when he was a little boy. And there's this, for those of you that haven't seen the film, it's a very powerful scene where you see the adult Jesus present day, and then they flash back to, in Mary's mind, they flash back to the young little boy Jesus, and there's a piece of music that accompanies that, and
Is that when Jesus trips and falls
yes,
and Mary goes to his
Mary
aid,
goes to his aid.
when he's carrying the cross and she
That
flashes back to
that is
him
correct,
as a
and she
child.
flashes back to him as a child, and in that moment of flashback, this is why I think so many of the things of that movie that Mel are just absolutely mind-boggling and beautiful and brilliant, and tough and horrific all at the same time. Um, but one of the most brilliant things I think that Mel did in that scene was Mary's, uh, in the movie, the mother of Christ is, so horrified by what she's seeing that she can't go to Jesus in his time of most need. By her flashing back and realizing this is my son, then she gains the strength to go to him. And that is honestly, that's the number one scene of anything I've ever done that people mention to me, without question. When you get to number two and number three, I'm telling you, there's so many moments. I always go back to things like the first big movie I ever did, studio movie that I did called Hocus Pocus. And I always harken back to that one and how great the Disney folks were to let me, to invite me to do this movie. And I had no time, 2 weeks to do 88 minutes of music or 90 minutes of music.
That's sort of like Bette Midler
Bette
and
Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, Kathy Najimy. It's kind of a classic. I mean, it's becoming a classic. Every little girl or bigger girl that I talk to, they know that movie, and to this day, so that has a very special place. The other one that jumps to my mind would be Cutthroat Island. The sheer immensity of this thing. My friend David Arnold, I didn't know him at the time, but he was originally on the show, and something happened, and he had to leave the production, and lo and behold, I got hired by Rennie Harlan through some fluke of nature, and thank you, Rennie, for taking a chance on me. And that was another one of those sort of, boy, I had to jump in that thing and just get it done. And literally, we had sessions booked in London. I had to get it done. Very short period of time. I wrote almost 2.5 to 3 hours of music for that thing. Because you can imagine, I mean, those of you who know that movie, what say what you will about
well,
the
totally.
movie.
It's a
Say
great.
what you will about the
It's
movie.
actually I like
It's
the
actually
movie.
not a bad movie.
No, and I think it'll have another life soon because
Well,
it's
it might, but
on
you
Blu-ray
know,
one day.
on Blu-ray, it looks great. It's beautiful. Gina, the whole uh, production team was wonderful. Rennie is a great guy. Gina Davis is an amazing, she's a great actress. She's also a wonderful person. So Cutthroat Island stands out. That was the first time I